When it comes to remarkable architecture, it's practically tradition to acknowledge and commend those who designed and built these great structures. But when it comes to the Great Sphinx, giving due credit is not that simple. Why? Well, because there's no definitive proof as to who built or commissioned the Sphinx. Despite the monument's intricate details, there's no indication of who its creators were. There are plenty of theories about who might have ordered the Sphinx to be built. The biggest and most popular theory is that the project was carried out under the leadership of a pharaoh, known as Khafre. Many feel that certain aspects of the Sphinx, including the shape and detail of its face, indicate not only that Khafre commissioned it, but that he had it made to resemble himself. Some scholars, on the other hand, doubt that the Sphinx was built by the ancient Egyptians. A prominent ancient astronaut theorist named Zitcharia Sitchi believes that it was constructed by a group of highly intelligent extraterrestrial deities called the Anunnaki. But what do you think? Is the Sphinx the product of hard-working human hands? And if so, whose? Or was it created by aliens? Let me know in the comments below. Number 7. Who saw what? Egypt is a harsh place to live due to its harsh climate, which was no more forgiving during ancient times than it is now. The intense, dry heat and blistering sand affected not only people themselves, but it also had an impact on their monuments. The Great Sphinx wasn't always as complete as it is now in terms of visibility. Over the many centuries since its completion, it's been buried by varying layers of sand. At certain points, only parts of the Sphinx could be seen. When Napoleon embarked on his failed attempt to conquer Egypt, the only visible part of the Sphinx was its head, which was sticking out from the sand. Many of history's most notable figures likely witnessed the monument in a similar state. A Frenchman and engineer named Émile Barrès was compelled to fix the error that the sand caused. He spent a decade between 1925 and 1936 meticulously excavating the area around the Great Sphinx so that it could be viewed in its entirety. To this day, thanks to Barrès, we can still see the whole Sphinx. His excavation also led to further study of the Sphinx. Number 6. A possible connection to Atlantis. It's not uncommon for legends of grand design to be attached to cultures and civilizations that don't have any overt connection to them. Some people believe that the Great Sphinx is connected to Atlantis. And this is admittedly one such far-out theory, yet it persists. The Sphinx is said to possess the head of a human but the body of a lion, and if you ask me, it sure looks that way. But in the eyes of some, it has supernatural features. This notion led to the idea that the Sphinx was a being that lived on Atlantis before the island disappeared. This theory has been around for centuries. When Plato first mentioned Atlantis in his writings, some interpreted his words to mean that Egypt had a connection to the fallen island. This thought was bolstered by a psychic named Edgar Allan Case, who had a vision one day that there was a hidden chamber underneath the Sphinx of Giza, and that within this chamber was knowledge of Atlantis. Despite much searching, such a chamber has never been found. However, some people cling steadfastly to their belief that the Sphinx and Atlantis are somehow associated with one another. Number 5. Was it alive? Many cultures have tales about ancient creatures that defy the imagination, and according to some writings about the Great Sphinx, the monument was once alive and able to communicate with people. Now, there's only one confirmed case of the Sphinx talking, and that was to a man called Thutmose, who hailed from a royal family in ancient Egypt. One night, Thutmose slept under the head of the Sphinx, which at that point in time was the only part of the monument not buried in the sand. And as he slept, he heard a voice coming from the Sphinx. According to the legend, the Sphinx asked Thutmose to free it from its sand prison, and should Thutmose do so, he would be made pharaoh of Egypt. The moment Thutmose awoke from his dream, he set out to free the Sphinx from its sandy tomb, and sure enough, he did it. The Sphinx was free to be experienced by its people. And true to its word, Thutmose would eventually become the pharaoh of Egypt as Thutmose IV. The story of Thutmose can be found on a tablet between the paws of the Sphinx.